Hello, everyone. This is Sully with Sully Speaks. Today we have a new video. We're going to be talking with, well, I actually already talked to him. This is just a recording of an anonymous cop. He didn't want to reveal his face or any of his information. He didn't want to get in trouble or lose his job, but he got pretty detailed with a lot of stuff. This is a really, really good one, and I hope that a lot of people learn a lot from it. We're getting the cops' perspective of what's going on in the world, and you're going to be pretty surprised. There was a lot of information that was given. Also, we'll be interviewing him next week about the DC Capitol building invasion as well. He was down there, and we're going to be getting some information from him pretty soon about it. So stay tuned for that one as well. Sit back and relax. Let's talk. Sully Speaks. This is Sully Speaks. I'm with the officer. Can we talk about your position or?
Sure.
Okay.
I work in a crime suppression unit, and I work narcotics.
Okay. So he works in narcotics. He wants to keep his identity anonymous, and I will respect that. So this is why we're just doing a voiceover, and we're going to start the interview. I'm going to let him tell his story. I want him to tell his story. I want you guys to hear what officers go through, how hard their job is, how much they sacrifice for us every single day, just so that we can come and bridge a gap that we have created and help our communities, because we need them. We need them. So go ahead. Let's start. Where do you want to start at?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to do it for you, just so people can understand the things that we go through. It's going to give a high perspective of what's behind the scenes versus what the media says. And so I've been policing for 9 years. I started out in a patrol unit. My dad is still a New Jersey State Trooper. He's been on for 28 years, so he's got 2 years left. We don't really talk as much just because our relationship kind of went sour. There were times where I wanted to leave policing, and he basically had said it would tarnish the badge that he put on me.
You got any more time or you got ready?
Are we already done? Listen, back to the interview.
You gotta fill those stomachs.
At least everybody knows what I like to eat. Back to my dad. My dad basically had told me that if I wanted to leave policing, it would tarnish the badge that he put on me, and he expects me to just serve. And unfortunately, the job itself puts things in your head that you're forced to just think about different things. And police officer suicides are at a all-time high right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I almost became a statistic multiple times. And and one of the things that I've told you was, in 9 years of policing, I've had zero use of force complaints against me. And it's because, number one, we go through de-escalation training on how to talk people down when they're screaming, and you walk into situations like that. And then secondly is you treat people with respect. And it came from my family, how I was raised. You just treat people with respect, and if they take it to a different level, you have to use your training at that point to talk them down. So, so the last 4.5 years, I've worked in a narcotics unit. I work undercover narcotics, and so I basically go after street level drugs, and then if it gets into a trafficking, then the state of Georgia, GBI, and then DEA, all those guys come in and handle it from their perspective. But for me, when it comes to marijuana, the laws part of the law. It's still a federal offense until they decide to get rid of it. But if I pull someone over, they have a little bit of marijuana, I'll just basically teach them a lesson and not to drive with it. Number one. Number two is to not smoke it while you're driving. So and it's considered a civil offense in our city, and so. So it all goes by how that interaction starts. If somebody is respectful to me, then I'm very highly respectable to them. And if they say that they want to, why'd you pull me over? Don't you have anything better to do? Then they're basically taking it to a different level. And for me, in our unit, we basically go after drugs.
Okay. Do you find you pull over more African Americans or more white people? Like, how do you?
So in our unit, we basically go after problem areas that we know of. We go by where the complaints are. We start looking at the house. We start following up. We got a crime tip. We got a tip line. We have confidential informants that we use. And so for me, to answer your question, if I was to pull someone over, I don't profile. I pull them over because there's a reason to pull them over. So if I see a car in one of my apartment areas that I work at 2:15 in the morning, just sitting there with their lights on, of course I'm going to interact with them. I want to know why they're sitting there. Could be something. Could be they're just hanging out, or it could be that they're planning a home invasion.
So you still have to investigate it.
Of course.
So basically, you're saying if you're looking suspicious, if you're dressed in a certain way, you have the right. You should investigate it just to make sure people are safe.
Yeah, and one of the things that people don't realize is I don't see color. I don't see black, white, yellow, green. It doesn't matter to me. One of the things that people don't realize is that when I was younger, I had black foster parents. And I was living in Paterson, New Jersey, and I remember when the movie Lean on Me was filmed. It was actually right down the road over at Eastside High School. So my foster parents were very strict with me. My mom and dad were divorced. My mom couldn't handle 3 kids, and so for me, my dad kept on saying, get into policing. Honestly, I would have been the last person on the planet you would have thought that would have became a police officer. I went to the University of Miami in Florida. I was a partier my freshman year.
So your black dad told you to get into police officer?
No. So my foster parents were black.
Yes.
So my mom, my biological dad, and my mom, my dad's a trooper, and he kept pushing. Get into policing, do something with your life, and the reason why he said that was my freshman year. I wouldn't be getting home until 7 in the morning, and somebody snitched on me. To this day, I don't even know who it was. But
we're gonna find out.
Yeah. So I come home, and we're sitting at a table, my family. My dad looks at me and he goes, "How's school?" "That's good." He goes, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" I go, "No." He goes, "All right." Because first of all, he goes, "If I find out that you're driving and you've been drinking," he goes, "first I'm going to stab you, and then I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to drop you at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean."
Okay.
Now, he wouldn't really do that, just for the record, but he was a very, very strict dad. And so our relationship went sour, just because when it was birthdays, he never cared, and so I was a partier, and so one of the things that I can always look back on is when I was in foster care and my black parents that I had, I would have to be home by 7 o'clock, or as they say here in the South, let me go back and get a switch.
Okay.
And they weren't playing. I mean, that's how it was.
They gave you that structure you needed.
Yeah. And so, to answer, going back to the question, I tell people I don't see color. I never did. And when it came to dating, especially, I could date the most beautiful Latin, black, didn't matter to me. I just never saw it that way.
Yeah, but when people hear I don't see color, they're like, that's some microaggression or some foolishness.
Sure.
It's like when you're saying that you don't see color, you're literally saying that, it's not even something that is acknowledged in your mind.
No, I'm there because of an action. I'm not there because I just want to show up and the old I'll pull somebody over for a brake light. No, I don't do that. I look for certain behaviors. As an example, I worked a DUI task force on New Year's Eve, I think I told you that. And last year, when I was on the DUI task force, I had 14 DUIs. Okay. Now, nothing's changed with Uber, Lyft. You still have all those options, right? But this time, thankfully, I say thankfully, but still too many, 5 this year. And they all admitted that they should have been drinking in the first place. So, I'm there because of an action. I'm not, there's a good book that's actually, that I'll recommend that, it's called Racial Profiling. And New Jersey State Police had been known for profiling. And they, the person that wrote this book was a trooper. And so as an example, they would go ahead and give, so if they had new cars that came into their fleet, everybody, all the white guys got the brand new cars, and then they gave this guy, one of the old cars with 129,000 miles on it. So he would be left out of certain things, and so it's crazy how those things happen. It still happens to this day.
So do you feel like there is a lot of racism in the force, the police force?
I think as a general observation, and again from 9 years of doing this, yes, there is, and it's unfortunate. One of the things for us that we're held to a high standard, a very, very high standard as far as defunding the police. And one of the things that you'll hear about is, all police officers are bad, and one of the things is that you'll hear people say this so often, but in my mind, I think that they're going to be the ones that are going to call 911 when there's a problem. Exactly. Right? If there's a home invasion, they're going to call 911. If somebody's holding somebody's child at gunpoint, they're going to call 911. If you defund the police, how are you going to do that? Take New York as an example. New York, they decided that they wanted to cut their budget for police officers, and they're down so many police officers. And it's across the country, not just New York. It's New Jersey, it's Connecticut, all these states that are talking about defunding the police.
But then they can't handle the pressure. They can't handle the amount of crimes that are happening.
Correct.
That are happening, like Chicago, the 4,000 people who got shot, and the mayor or the governor, who is she? The mayor is so worried about the COVID, and I'm like, well, people are dying more from gunshots than the COVID.
That's correct, and there's a huge gang problem that they have there that they can never get control over. Personally, for me, I had an opportunity to work in a gang unit. I chose not to. I wanted to be more focused on the drug problem that exists. And we have such a huge. You talk about the COVID pandemic, but what about the opioid pandemic? Right?
And that should have been more of a priority.
And unfortunately, it wasn't. And it's the same thing with mental health. In the country, we're one of the richest countries in the world, and we can't. Put more funding into help mental health, and I've seen things that nobody should ever see. Nobody should ever see. So, and it goes back to, where do I go for help? How do I help myself?
Yeah, as a police officer, you can't. You can't put the thing over your face like they may tell you in an airplane.
You take it home with you, and unfortunately, it's caused me personally, I try to leave it check it at the door and go home and live my life, but you can't. It's a 24/7 job, and it hurts when I hear people say that every single police officer is bad, and it hurts my heart, because there's a reason why I chose to do this. It was never about locking someone up. It was just more about, I was pushed into this to make it, to do something with my life. And why I'm doing something with my life, I never looked at it as just putting people in jail. It's not. I've saved multiple people's lives over the past, amount of years I've been policing.
Yeah. So, do you feel like a lot of police officers suffer from PTSD? Yeah.
The answer to that is yes. there's I think one of the things that people don't realize is that when it comes to, and here's a perfect example. Working working in a narcotics unit, there's the good, then there's the bad. All right, and one of the things I tell people is like, I had a 12-year-old girl who overdosed on heroin. 12. Okay. The reason why is she lied to her parents, who basically said, I'm going to go to the mall with some friends. And now, 12 years old, number one, there's a curfew. Number two is that there should be an adult with you at 12. But no, there wasn't. And this particular person, she ended up at a party with 17 and 18-year-olds. Now, you would have figured if it's your kid, you would call and check, where are you? You were supposed to be home at so-and-so.
Yeah.
They did not call the police department until 1:30 in the morning to say that their child wasn't home yet. All right? And so we apply for a warrant to ping the cell phone. We ping it, and it leads us to a house. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Kids. It's a movie that was made years and years ago about, it's a really good movie actually, and it talks about the problem of what drugs will do. So you walk in and you see all these people like just strung out and sleeping, and just it looks like a huge party, beer cans, everything all over the place. So we're looking for her. We can't find her. Look around, nothing. Go upstairs, and we open up the door to the bathroom. She's laying on the floor with the needle halfway stuck out of her arm. All right. Now, she has never done drugs before. I looked at her arms. You can tell no history, more peer pressure of, oh, try this. You know what? You're going to enjoy it. It's one of those things you're going to like how it feels. The problem is that you don't know if it's drugs mixed with fentanyl or, they basically just overdosed. And now the PTSD part of this is try to imagine yourself telling a parent that their 12-year-old daughter overdosed. All right. And it still sticks with me still. And it hurts because it's one of those things that I take home with me. And the problem I have with this is that I watched the interview that they did with our detectives, and I always look to see how they react. Not one reaction, none. And so these particular people were charged with felony child neglect and felony child endangerment, and it hasn't gone to trial yet because it just keeps going.
So they're just out here living.
Yeah, they pawned it out. And
so do you feel? I feel like it starts with the parents. It starts with the parents.
It does.
Like because if it doesn't start with the parents, then it ends up being your fault.
Correct.
So as a cop. So even if the parents are perfect or whatever the situation, it's always an issue. Is there a way, I feel like something needs to be worked together, like as parenting classes need to happen, something needs to happen. Because the moms and dads, or the baby moms and the baby dads, are not paying attention to what is going on, and then they grow up to be a Jake Blake. And I understand, everybody's like, oh my goodness, the cop did it. The cop didn't do it. He did it to himself. And I will stand by my word, because it makes me mad with the Walter Wallace and every other person.
Walter Scott, you mean?
Walter Scott. No, in Philly.
Oh, in Philly, yes. Okay, yep.
So, with the people who could have prevented it from the gate are the parents.
It starts with the parents.
It starts with the parents.
You need to find out what they're doing on the internet. You need to set specific times that you can monitor what they're doing. Okay. And here's another example. Mom and dad. This is something that wasn't on the parents. All right. So I'm going to flip flop it and tell you about the parents that were actually good parents to their kid. They have a 10-year-old boy who the neighbor that they have, their child plays with his child, and I say his because he's a widower. So mom died, and so he had taken care of his kid. And so mom and dad decide to have a date night for the first time in about 11 months, where they can go to dinner and a movie, and they can leave their child with the person they trust, right? Which is their neighbor. So mom, said, hey, just make sure he's in bed by so and so time, and help yourself. We have food. So of course, everything's good. They leave. They go on their date. Mom decides to call and check on the child, make sure everything's good. Right after dinner, there is no answer on the phone. That's the first time. So maybe they're just out back or something. It's still light out. Mom calls again right before they go in the movie theater.
Speak louder. Let me make sure we hear it.
Mom calls to check on their child, and nothing. Okay, that was number 2. Now, after the previews, before the movie starts, they call for a third time. No answer. And this is about 9:30, quarter to 10. And so mom does the right thing. She becomes concerned. And she calls a friend of hers to go by the house and check. And all the lights were out. So mom calls the police department to say, can you please check, I don't know if you all are busy, but would you mind just going by my home? I'm about 45 minutes away, but can you please go and check on our son? And so this where I'm going to lead this to is not good. So mom tells the police department where the key is in the back, and complete authorization to go in the home. So I get up, I get there, I'm the first one to arrive, and as policy, I have to wait for a second or third to show up before I enter the home for safety. So 2 other officers show up. We go to the back of the home where the key was. We open up the door. All the lights were out. Now, so we start clearing each room, because we're thinking maybe there was something that happened, or there's maybe there's a maybe they just decided to go out for a drive. Nobody. So we clear each room. Now we go upstairs, and as soon as you walk up the stairs to the left, there's a guest room, and nobody's in there. We'll clear that room. Walk down the hallway. There's the master bedroom, and nobody's in there. There's only one other room, and it has the cartoon characters around the door. That door's shut. We opened up the door, and the neighbor that they trusted their son with was underneath the covers with their 10-year-old boy naked. Okay? Now, we had gotten there, fortunately, before it would have gone further. Okay? And I had to tell the mom and dad what happened. So I snapped. I lost it. I snapped, and I started yelling, and I don't know what it was, but it was. I kept okay, just calm down, and it wasn't working. And and I just mom gets home, she's crying, and we kept on saying, child's gonna be okay. We're gonna go ahead and get some help. The kicker of this was mom tried to commit suicide 2 weeks later because she blamed herself for leaving their child with that babysitter. We had to put her into a facility. Thankfully, she's good now, but she was blaming herself. And so you try to imagine yourself going home with something like that. You know,
every other day. Like, is it? How often does this stuff happen?
not something like that. Not.
But I'm saying traumatizing things.
Oh, it's like practically every other day you see something. Especially, you are at a traffic accident where there's fatalities, and you see a leg laying on the street. I mean, it hurts, and it just, you think to yourself, why do people do the things that they do? Accidents happen, I get that, but not something that can be controlled like that. I go back to when I first started. I had my first domestic violence case. It was the first one I've ever seen before, and we had gotten there, and you heard screaming, and we knocked. Nobody opened up the door, so we used one of our battering rams to open up the door. He was closed-fisted, punching his girlfriend in the face. Like, her whole right side of her face was to the left. So nobody should ever lay hands on anybody. I have 3 no-nos that I've always gone by. It doesn't matter. I have 3 no-nos that I've always gone by my whole life. Number 1, I will not tolerate anybody who lays hands on somebody. There's no reason for it. Number 2 is anybody abuses kids and anybody abuses animals. Those are the 3 things that I've stuck by. And in the 9 years I've been doing this, you see things. It's just consistent. I mean, I had this lady hit her husband over the head with a frying pan last night. You can't make this stuff up. It's like, why?
Okay. What are your thoughts on no-knock warrants?
It's a great question. I personally, for me, and again, this is my training, and there's specific departments that are that operate within certain ways. For us, what we have to do is called articulate reasonable suspicion. There has to be a reason why we would want to do that. Okay. And we have to follow up based on what we know that determines what we call probable cause. Right. So, do I agree if there should be no-knock warrants? No. Do I think that there should be knock and talk warrants, or knock and talks, which are different, right? No knocks are basically you're just coming in someone's house and, hey, how you doing? We're here. Versus, just knocking at the door and speaking. I arrested a 57-year-old man for selling weed out of his house to high school kids.
That makes money.
Oh yeah, and I can't mention anything about where, why, who, but to give you since you're speaking about this, I'll give you a visual on it, and you can take that with how you would want to, but for the purpose of this interview, I'm going to show you this picture, but I can show you because there's our suspect isn't in it. It's just what we recovered. Okay, so this goes back to your question as far as knock and talks. All right, the knock and talk that we had. So we knocked on the door, and again, the neighbors are so good. They're so good with, if they see something, they say something. And these are one of those neighborhoods that you want to do that.
Yeah.
And and I applaud the neighbors for doing this. I really do, because it takes strong people to call and say, hey, there's a problem. And,
right. So snitches get stitches. That needs to go out the door.
Please.
Y'all need to tell, because I know if I see a drug dealer, I'm telling them.
Because imagine yourself, that could be somebody's kid, and the thing that we have here, this goes back to, marijuana itself. I think, personally for me, when it comes to the medical side of it, I think that it should be legalized. But for recreational use, I don't agree with that, just because it's a gateway drug and it leads into other things.
And you've seen it.
I've seen it.
You've seen it happen as a gateway drug.
Yes.
You've seen the ill effects of it.
You take that 12-year-old girl. I don't know if she was using marijuana before that, but we couldn't tell. But the needle that was still stuck in her arm with the heroin that was still in it was, it just, if I pull someone over and they've got weed in the car, the first thing I say is, who has it? And that's where usually, what are you talking about? What do you mean? I go, I was born, yesterday, but today's my first day. Maybe you can tell me. And they're all looking at each other, and I said, if I have to search your car, this nasty car, I will take you all to jail. And if you think you're going to go to a cupcake jail, no, you're not. Okay, so then you start seeing fingers pointing at each other, and you start seeing like this. So I said, give it to me. What do you mean, sir? Give it to me. I go, I'm not playing with you. Here. I snap it in half. I said, you see how easy that was? I said, don't lie. Just give it to me, and in certain cities, certain states, it's a civil offense. In our area, in our specific agency, it's a civil offense. So it's not even a misdemeanor. It's not even a...
I've gotten off. Why are you looking for the picture? I've gotten off for traffic issues on legit because I'm a woman. I would start crying. The kids in the back, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Please, I'm so sorry.
And then I wouldn't get anything. My first traffic stop, I told on myself. He stopped me. And it was like, I was driving a car, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but I was like, I just got my license and I didn't get a chance to register, but I want to try it out. So I'm driving the car and he stopped me. And the first thing I said, officer, I'm so sorry, but this car isn't registered yet. I didn't get my insurance. And then he said, I just wanted to tell you that your lights were off.
See, and you bring up a very good point. It's all how that interaction starts, right? If I pull somebody over, and this goes back to your question you had a while back, as far as do you pull over just African American drivers? Do you pull over Latin? It doesn't matter. I'm there because something happened. They did something, So I'm like, okay. So when I come up and I say, why are you doing 104 in a 55 mile an hour zone? Okay. You know what this particular person says to me? I'm on my way to go make donuts. I said, oh, okay. Let me go. So let me go make your donuts. I'll be right back. So I went back, checked warrants, clear. Number one, super speeder, 104 in a 55 mile an hour zone. Number two, speeding, 104 and 55, which I can technically take him to jail. But with COVID, we're not going to do that. Number three is reckless driving, failure to maintain lane, and no seatbelt. So if you add all up together, those donuts are about $8,000, give or take. So I write the citations, come up to the car, all my body cameras, everything's on. I said, sir, your donuts just came out of the oven. I said, by you signing here, it's not an admission of guilt. It's a promise that you are going to appear. You do have a mandatory court appearance. So-and-so date. And he says, officer, you're writing me a citation. I go, I'm writing you 5. I said, here's the thing. If I come up to you and I ask a question, why are you doing 104? Don't be as smart. Don't be smart to me. I would have actually wrote him a warning. I really would have. I hate writing traffic tickets. I hate it because I got to sit in court and it's crazy. And I'd rather be out there doing my job than having to sit in a courtroom all day. So he says, well, what happens if I don't sign it? I go, if you don't sign it, I go, you're going to have a bad day. I said, I'll lock you up. I said, I can technically lock you up now. So he was trying to impress his girlfriend that was in the car. And his girlfriend gets mad and says, please, just sign the tickets. Just sign them. And he says, I can't believe you're writing me these tickets. I said, all you had to do was just be nice. That's all I would have asked for. So the visual I'm going to show you on this is when it goes back to your question regarding the no-knock warrants and knock and talk warrants. They're different things, okay? The no-knock warrants is basically you got intel that there's somebody doing something bad at the house. Break the door down. I don't agree with that because that can go wrong so many times. You take somebody knocking at the wrong person's house, and it's happened. There was a story about a lady who was elderly, and they knocked at the wrong house, and they shot her and killed her. So this particular one, all right.
That's a lot.
Yep. So what I'm doing is I'm showing a picture about this particular case that we had, where the neighbors had said that somebody was all these cars keep coming up at so and so's house at 3:00 in the afternoon. So we're thinking like creeper, major creeper, but thankfully it wasn't. So we knocked at the door, and me and my partner, who's African American, her and I
We're
work
about to say she's black.
Yep, she's black, and her and I work very close together. We're family. I mean, we will lay our lives down for each other. That's how close we are with this team, and that's how good we are. We know how each other works, and so her and I, we've been working together for about almost 5 years. We know a lot about each other. She's helped talk me off a bridge multiple times.
She's a good undercover person. She can be,
Oh, she plays the part perfectly.
when I say she can be Shaniqua off the block, and then she can be, Olivia Pope.
That's right.
Like she can be that.
So when we knock at the door, all right, I'm gonna zoom in here for a second so you can see this from the visual. Okay. All right. So my partner says, "Sir, somebody had said somebody's smoking a little weed out of the house," and so and I'm gonna try to play the voice that he said. He says, "Well, me and my wife smoke weed." And I said, okay, well, if it's just a little bit, we're just going to write you a ticket and we'll be on our way. Now, we already know what we're getting ourselves into, even before we even do it. So, can you show us where that little bit of weed is? Do you mind if we come and take a look? And he lets us in the house. Now, at that point, we're basically saying we don't have to go apply for a search warrant because he just did a voluntary, police letting us in the house. So we walk in. First thing we always ask, do you have any weapons?
Of course.
I have one gun. Where is it? It's in the safe. Okay. I'm going to have this officer stay with you. Where did you say it was? It was over by the computer? Okay. All right, sir. Now, if this is all this is, just that little bit of weed that you have in your bowl, that little bowl that you've been smoking out of, then we're going to be okay. Now, I'm going to ask you one question. Just once. Do you have anything else? No, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay. Do you mind if we just take a quick look? And then, as I said, if it's just a little, we may not even write you a ticket. We're just going to be on our way. So, he says, I don't mind. Okay, you stay here. So he sells seafood. Okay, he's a seafood salesman.
He is a jack of all trades.
Yes. So now, these little THC-laced candies that you are seeing in this visual I'm showing you was hidden underneath the salmon in the refrigerator to try to mask the smell of our dog.
I am officially done.
Okay. So now, it's getting deeper. Okay. So now, I said, okay, were you going to tell us about this? I don't know. I forgot about that. Okay. Now, you said you only had one gun. I said, did you forget about these, including a sawed-off shotgun?
4, 5, 6.
Yep. And did you also forget about the $8,000 that you had in cash?
He's
And
making money that week.
did you also forget about this, which was all packaged for sale? Okay. So now, what you have is we charge him with 6 felonies. All right.
I agree.
And he had guns being used in the commission of a crime, which in certain states, our particular state, they are very hard on that. All right. So this has already gone to trial, already done. This particular person got 36 years in prison.
Was it worth it?
Nope.
Was the $8,000?
Nope. So what ends up happening is when we call, I said, call your wife and tell her that she needs to come down to the jail. So he has her on speakerphone. Honey, the police are here. And so she says, why are the police here? I go, excuse me, let me interrupt for 1 second. I said, if you try to play stupid, I'm going to lock you up too. All right. So I said, don't act like you don't know what's been going on. She goes, okay, I'm so sorry. She goes, I'm just nervous. Okay. You're just nervous? I said, okay. I go, if you're saying that you didn't know about this, you're going to have a bigger problem. She goes, oh, I kept on telling him not to do it, blah, blah.
She's not a ride or die. She's not a ride or die.
No, so here's, this is what we walk into. I just want you to see, I want you all to see what we deal with. And this is a perfect example of that. All right, is that we follow up based on what certain things are that happen. And this was.
Can I ask a question?
You sure
What do you guys do with all the drugs?
Well, so the drugs we destroy, the cash goes towards bulletproof vests, things like that.
Hey.
Yep. So we don't destroy the money. The money goes towards.
I'm about to say, y'all can just put it over here.
We destroy the weapons. We also destroy the drugs as well.
Okay.
But this is when I go back to earlier. What my statement was: when it gets to a certain level above street level, that's where DEA and it becomes federal, and that's exactly what this was. So.
It's not worth it overall. It's like, I feel like drug dealers, especially young men, they are exquisitely smart businessmen.
That's correct.
They
And
can do so much.
you're nailing it. And here's the thing: is that you have white collar crimes. The business people that commit fraud. That are using someone else's credit card or securities fraud. And then you have the other people, which I like to call the blue collar drug dealers, because you got the white collar people, business, then you got the blue collar drug dealers and blue collar drug addicts, whatever you want to call them, and those are what we go after. We want them off the street because they're killing the children, and that's my problem. So when the next thing I'm going to show you is. In our particular team, we have 2 canines.
Yeah.
And then
Is he one of us?
yes, correct.
Okay. We're sitting next to one of you guys.
Yep. And so just hanging out underneath the table. And so what I'm going to show you is this is how we don't just go out and just say, hey, what do you got? That's not, we go back to Terry Frisk is what we're referring to.
Well, what is another word for it?
Stop and
Stop and
frisk.
frisk.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is in the state of New York, they were doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when you talk about systematic changes. That's a perfect example of that. If I see somebody walking, I'm not going to sit there and just say, "Hey, stop! Let me search you." No way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason why. Now, if I see somebody walking down the street strung out, of course I'm going to. I mean, because they're going to end up hurting themselves more than likely, right? So
You know somebody that was using. We were in Philadelphia. You can't tell me you don't know somebody's using, somebody's sold drugs, somebody's selling drugs. Like it's something that's common. You are very much here. I'm sorry, we're in the diner, so sorry about that, you guys.
You bring up a valid point, though, as far as, the whole stop and frisk thing is just, it's crazy to me because, again, you can't just, violate somebody's civil liberties for walking down the street. You can't. And it's not right. It's not something anybody should do. And that leads into something else, into something else, into something else. I'm a big fan of case law. All right, so case law, when it comes to certain things, following up on how these cases evolved, what happened, why it happened, all those things. So one of the things I mentioned to you earlier, as far as the Rashard Brooks case at Wendy's, this particular case, the suspect fell asleep in the drive-thru at Wendy's. Okay, it was a simple. He fell asleep, and when you look at the video, the officer was treating him with high amount of respect. There was nothing, sir, yes, sir. Then when they're arresting him for DUI, he grabs a taser. Okay, so now you went from here to here, and now no use of force yet. But when you aim that taser, you drew your line in the sand. Because
do you feel that he was being questioned for a long time?
No,
Was that typical?
no, it's that's how we're trained. What we want to do is find out where it's coming from. What it could be under a medical condition. We don't know that.
Okay.
You know, so there could be something that could have happened where maybe he was having something, you know, medically could have happened.
Yeah.
But diabetes,
something
is,
like
you know, anything like that. But we're not judging until we find out. But when you grab a taser and you aim it, we have no choice. All right. This goes back to a case too. One of the colleges, they had a suicide by cop. Okay. I'm not going to say the college, but this particular person had a box cutter. All right. The officers that were there, they had never even, I don't even think they ever pulled their gun out on somebody for years and years and years. But this particular case, they kept on saying to this person, "Do not approach us with the box cutter.
Yes.
We will shoot you." You know, so they already had a note written, suicide note.
Wow.
So they were sitting there, box cutters out. What people don't realize is that this person hadn't been searched yet. They could have a gun. So you hear about box cutter, there could be something else. You don't know that.
Yeah.
So this person was warned multiple times, "Do not approach us." So the second that starts running towards the officer with the box cutter, they had to shoot. So again, it all goes about how it gets raised each step of the way before a decision has to be made.
What are your thoughts on tasing? I seen a video
Mhm.
that it was two officers, a male and female officer, and they stopped the African American male. And then they said he had a machete. So he had the machete, you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
So then they tased him.
Uh-huh.
And then he was shocked a little bit and got up, walked over there, and then sliced the officer.
That's PCP more than likely because
Whatever
PCP.
he was on, but tasing is not always successful.
No, and that's the thing. Some agencies don't even have tasers. So
really?
yeah, and in fact, you know, the taser situation. I believe it was, if I can remember correctly. I'm trying to remember the agency where this happened. But certain agencies, they don't have tasers. In this case here, you already know that there's a weapon involved,
Yes.
right? There's a machete. And, you know, honestly, I can remember when I got certified on taser, it is the worst feeling. I'd rather get bit by a dog than get tased. I mean, that's how you watch these videos and you'll see them. Taser, taser, taser. There's a 5-second ride and then a 30-second ride. And what we mean is tasing 30 seconds. All right. And I'm telling you, think about putting your fingers in a socket and holding it there for 30 seconds while and raise that like 10 levels. The tasers are used to before you have to get to a certain level of force, all right? And again, you're hoping to de-escalate that before it even gets there. So in this case, you're talking about there's a known weapon, and so if
Would you get tased or would you get shot?
I'd rather tase somebody than ever having to shoot somebody. I mean, I don't want to have to shoot somebody ever.
Yeah.
This taser will work if there's not a certain drug like PCP involved. PCP, they don't feel anything.
Oh,
You can sit there and just tase, nothing. And it'll take us about 10 officers to handcuff them.
How do you know if the person you don't know?
By their actions.
Oh.
You can tell almost immediately that there's, and so, you know, I'm going to give an example here.
Yeah.
In this case here, all right, you're going to see here, all right, this was a package that was picked off from the postal inspector because the x-ray picked up on something, all right?
Yeah.
So the guy that's on my team has his dog. All right, this package ended up being 400 ecstasy pills
You're lying.
that was shipped in from Germany. So you see how the dog keeps on hitting on that package?
Yeah.
Keeps going right towards it. So this goes back to articulating reasonable suspicion, and that's exactly what you're looking at here. There was reasonable suspicion for us to apply for a search warrant. Now, when you see him start leading the dog out, the dog is going to start reacting again.
Like, no, go back to the box. Go back to the box.
So you'll see here, there's an empty box behind that, just to walk him through, but you'll see. Okay. And right now he's just making sure there's nothing else around that box.
Okay.
All right. So now, and you'll see here. See, it keeps on trying to go right towards that box.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's the empty box. Now watch, right there. See,
Is there something in it?
there's something in it. So my point in showing you this is that in order, when we articulate reasonable suspicion, we apply for a search warrant based on what we see and what we know that's there. And search warrant was granted, and that's how we found it. And so in this case, we have one of our undercovers dress up as a UPS or FedEx person and bring that box, because at this point we have to have the case to make, once they sign it and accept it, we place them under arrest.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Well, yeah, there was the guy in Arizona. He's in a hotel, and the cop made him fall on the ground towards him, and his sweatpants were coming down. I think he reached to pull his sweatpants off.
Yep.
And what are your thoughts on that?
Again, remember, each agency operates differently, right?
Yeah.
We don't do the crawling thing. What we do is we have them lift up their shirt, circle around, so we can determine. We have typically a canine that's there. Canine will be released if they start reaching for something.
Okay.
Before they even pull something out, that dog will be on them.
Okay.
So
So I wanted to say that the reason that I showed these particular videos was because everybody only seen one view or one point of view. I want to one day kind of dissect these videos with an officer, because after seeing these videos, and not to say anyone deserved to die, anyone deserved to be paralyzed, anyone deserved to be hurt, but after seeing these videos, I do believe that, it's hard being an officer and making these heavy decisions. So, making these heavy decisions, I'm sorry about that little noise thing. So making these decisions that involves not just your life, the life of another person, these decisions that can end your career, that can make your career, these are life or death situations that most of us tend to judge and tend to think, oh, well, you could have tased, or you could have did this, you could have did that. But in that situation, you probably would have did the same thing that the officer would have did, especially if your life was in danger, or you might have done worse. So I think we should just learn to respect some decisions that the officers do, because there's not all good and there's not all bad. There's good and bad people in the world. That's all I wanted to do, just to bring the attention to what's going on. Thanks.